Today's case is taking us to the UK, to the University of Hull, Yorkshire, England, where a bright, ambitious student vanished into the night, never to return home. What started as a missing persons case quickly unraveled into one of the most chilling investigations in British crime history, exposing a predator hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This is the story of Libby Squire, a young woman with big dreams, a promising future, and a life stolen far too soon. Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories, where I tell true crime stories with the utmost care and respect for the victims and bearable for my community. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It truly helps me continue bringing these important stories to you. These cases deserve to be remembered. Now, settle in and let's begin. Hull, a lively university town in East Yorkshire, is home to 14,000 students, each chasing dreams, shaping their futures. Among them was Libby Squire, known to friends and family as Libby, a bright, ambitious, 21-year-old philosophy student who had built a life filled with laughter, friendship, and big plans for the future. Libby wasn't just thriving academically. She was the kind of person who lit up a room, who made sure everyone felt included, who balanced wit and warmth effortlessly. She adored her 3 younger siblings, remained incredibly close to her parents, and had a solid relationship with her boyfriend Connor. To him, she was captivating, empathetic, the most interesting person he'd ever met. But beneath that bright exterior, Libby faced challenges. She had always pushed herself, sometimes too hard, holding herself to impossibly high standards. Over time, the pressure weighed on her, affecting both her well-being and academics. But Libby was resilient, determined to keep going no matter the obstacles. She persevered, earned her A-levels, and when she was finally accepted into university, she was overjoyed. Her mother, Lisa, worried about her being so far from home, afraid her mental health might suffer again. But Libby was determined. She took a gap year, traveled to Paris, and returned feeling stronger than ever, ready for the next chapter of her life. And in many ways, university was perfect for her. It brought new confidence, new experiences, and endless possibilities. She dreamed of traveling with friends after graduation, hoping to step into journalism. But on January 31st, 2019, everything changed. At 8:30 p.m., Libby left her student accommodation with friends, heading to a house gathering before a night out at Welly, a popular club. The plan was simple: drinks, games, catching up, and then heading to the club with the rest of the students to continue the night. By 10 o'clock, she texted Connor goodnight, leaving her phone at home. At 11:20, she and her friends arrived at the club, picked up on CCTV as they walked in. But when Libby reached the entrance, she was turned away, too intoxicated, struggling to stand, unable to get inside. Her friends did their best. They regrouped and put her in a taxi, handed the driver some money, and instructed him to take her home. They watched the taxi drive off and carried on with their night. Hours later, just before 3 a.m., as Libby's friends returned home and settled in for the night, they sent a quick text to a housemate just to check on Libby. But Libby wasn't home. She actually never got home. Her phone was still at home, meaning there was no way to reach her. Even more alarming, her house keys were found in the garden. Outside, it was bitterly cold, snow covered the ground, and Libby was out there alone. Friends called everywhere, asked everyone, but no one had seen her. With nowhere else to turn, they called the police immediately. And soon, it became clear. Libby hadn't just wandered off. Something was very, very wrong. At first, people wondered if Libby had simply run away, that maybe her mental health struggles had resurfaced, leading her to disappear voluntarily. But those closest to her dismissed that possibility immediately. She had been in great spirits, thriving at university, surrounded by friends she adored, and had just received glowing feedback on her Christmas assignments. This wasn't someone planning to vanish. This was someone building a future. Within hours, the media was flooded with her name, her face now front and center, as headlines covered the mystery of the missing 21-year-old. Then the footage emerged. A nearby CCTV camera captured her approaching Welly nightclub. She was off camera when security turned her away, forcing her to return to her group. A local businessman released the footage, hoping it would jog someone's memory, urging anyone who saw her that night to come forward. Police quickly tracked down the taxi driver. He confirmed dropping her off at Wellesley Avenue, noting that he had seen her walking toward her front door. But for some reason, she never went inside. Investigators now had a timeline, and CCTV surrounding the area helped track her movements. At 11:37, she was caught walking alone. At 11:42, passers-by found her lying in the snow, crying incoherent and distressed. They tried to help, but she pushed them away. She was snappy and confused. They assumed she was just drunk, that she would find her way home, so they left her there. A few minutes later, a group of students noticed her outside their house, concerned for her well-being, inviting her inside, but she refused, continuing to walk aimlessly. Authorities later speculated that Libby may have been suffering from early-stage hypothermia, the freezing temperatures affecting her ability to think clearly. Then, at 11:45, she was seen one last time, sitting alone on a bench. A male driver pulled over, asked if she was okay. She responded yes, so he drove away.
Specialist teams aided by Coast Guards are continuing their search efforts along the nearby River Hull. Students have also helped in the ongoing operation.
It doesn't feel real, it still feels like really surreal. We were talking like last night and it feels like something out of a movie, and the second you don't do anything, you just get frustrated. She's a lovely person and it's so out of character for something like this to happen. Please come home, we know, we love you, and all the support, there's over 200 people in there for you. Please come home soon.
Libby got into a taxi outside the Welly Club in Beverley Road at 11 p.m. on Thursday. Police believe she got out near her home in Wellesley Avenue, just a few minutes up the road. But she was then spotted on CCTV 45 minutes later here, at the junction with Hayworth Street. A male driver reportedly saw her sitting on a bench and got out to ask if she was okay. She said she was and he drove away. What happened next remains a mystery.
From that moment, search efforts exploded. Forensic officers scoured the last place she was seen, specialist teams combed the area, Coast Guard searched along the River Hull, and her friends, classmates, and community worked tirelessly, checking every garden, shed, and abandoned building. Her devastated parents went public, pleading for answers.
I just want to know that you're safe. Please get in touch with us any way you can. The whole family is missing you, especially me and your dad, your sisters and your brother. I miss you so much. It's breaking my heart not knowing where you are.
Libby is our kind, thoughtful, beautiful girl who is loved by so many people.
Social media spread her name everywhere, making sure no one could forget Libby Squire. To the public, police were treating it as a missing persons case. But behind the scenes, detectives already suspected something far worse. They were looking at it as an abduction. The search for Libby Squire had now become one of the largest investigations in Humberside Police's history. Her disappearance dominated national news. Her name was everywhere. But despite the overwhelming attention, no solid leads were turning up. Authorities analyzed her phone, hoping it would reveal a clue, a meeting, a planned interaction, but it provided nothing. The investigation hinged entirely on CCTV, a puzzle piece by piece, stitched together by fragments of footage across the city. By day 4, police expanded their search to the water, the river near her home, combing through its depths for any trace of evidence. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued their exhaustive search across the streets, studying every possible clue, searching for anything that might lead them to her last movements. Then, the first big break came. A local resident living near Oaks Road playing fields reported hearing a woman screaming around 12:30 a.m., the sound coming from a wooded area nearby. The scream was so loud it woke him up, and he distinctly remembered checking his phone at that exact moment. When he looked outside, he saw a man hurrying toward a car, appearing panicked, in a rush to leave. This time frame shifted everything. If this was Libby, it meant there was a 30 to 40-minute gap from when she was first seen wandering alone in the streets to this moment, an incredibly narrow window of time that police could now zone in on. Going back to the footage, detectives worked in reverse order, retracing every step leading up to the scream. Then they found something. A silver Vauxhall Astra, caught circling the area repeatedly in the hours before Libby vanished. The car was driving round and round, seemingly with no purpose, lingering in several locations where Libby was last seen. Just before midnight, CCTV picked up the Vauxhall Astra pulling into a road near where Libby was walking. A man stepped out, crossed the street quickly, as if looking for someone. Libby was standing near a bus stop, her movements uncertain, sluggish, yet still appearing to head in the direction of her home. Then, the man crossed back over, choosing to walk on the opposite side of the road. It was careful, calculated. As if he was gauging the situation, seeing whether Libby was alone, assessing his moment to act. A minute passed. Then, he crossed the road again, walking straight toward Libby. 5 minutes later, CCTV showed them walking together, but in the opposite direction. She was no longer heading home. Soon Libby was seen on the pavement, and the man had returned to his car, waiting, watching, headlights flashing as other vehicles passed. Authorities firmly believed he was waiting for the street to clear to ensure no witnesses were present. Then, at 12:07, Libby got inside the car. The vehicle pulled away, and she was gone. Later, Libby's watch was found discarded at that exact location. Police believed this meant one of two things. Either the driver coaxed her in, convincing her to get inside, or he physically grabbed her arm, forcing her inside. It was a tiny, crucial piece of evidence, one that could have been missed if the car had been parked even a foot further away. But now investigators had something concrete, a description of the car, a time frame, and a location where Libby was last seen alive. And just as they began digging deeper, they tracked the vehicle's movements, leading them straight to the man who was about to become their prime suspect. The investigation had reached a critical turning point. CCTV showed the silver Vauxhall Astra pulling into Oak Road playing fields. It waited for 10 minutes, and this aligned perfectly with the time a resident heard chilling screams from the wooded area nearby. Then, the car's headlights flicked on, and it drove away, heading back onto the streets. But soon, another disturbing lead emerged. At 3 a.m., 2 women came forward with a separate complaint. They reported that a man had stepped out in front of them, fully exposed, shamelessly engaging in a sick act right there on the street. They were horrified, but he seemed to relish their discomfort, unfazed by their fear. Using the location, description, and timeline, police connected the man to the Vauxhall Astra, and suddenly, everything matched up perfectly. This was the same man, the same car. Now, police had a clear image of their person of interest. Following his movements before and after the night Libby disappeared, investigators zeroed in on the car's number plate. Then, on February 6th, after days of relentless searching, police made an official announcement. They had made an arrest in connection with Libby's disappearance. The suspect was 24-year-old Pawel Relowicz, a married father of 2, who worked as a butcher. His home was less than a mile from where Libby vanished. Neighbors described him as a hard-working family man, someone who loved the gym, baking, and spending time with his young children. To those who knew him, there was no sign of anything sinister, no reason to believe he was capable of something so horrifying. But the reality? Pawel wasn't just a person of interest. Police had just captured a dangerous predator. After taking his fingerprints and DNA, shocking new discoveries emerged. He was linked to a series of sexual offenses dating back nearly 2 years. For months, Pawel had been prowling the streets of Hull, breaking into homes, peering through windows, watching couples in their most vulnerable moments. He had a pattern, often exposing himself, stealing underwear, and leaving disturbing evidence behind. One victim recalled waking up to find Pawel staring at her through the glass of her bedroom door. In panic, she texted her housemates, who chased him off, desperate to capture a photo, but the image wasn't clear enough to identify him. And the most chilling discovery? He had been committing these crimes on the very same streets where Libby had lived. His fingerprints and DNA had been found multiple times over the years, but because he had no prior criminal record, no match was ever made. Now, police had that match, and it was far worse than anyone had imagined. From an early age, Pawel Relowicz battled disturbing urges. By his own admission, he couldn't control them, struggling with an obsession with violent and explicit content. To his wife, he was simply going on evening runs, but in reality, he was prowling the streets, looking for open windows to peer into, targeting women walking alone, and exposing himself without remorse. Now, 7 days had passed since Libby vanished, and police were meticulously combing through Pawel Relowicz's house and vehicle. Inside his home, there was nothing unusual. Inside his car, it was a different story entirely. Investigators found stolen underwear, personal photographs taken without permission, used items, and evidence of disturbing activities, items linked to home break-ins and voyeuristic crimes spanning years. When questioned, Pawel Relowicz denied everything, claiming he had never seen Libby before in his life. But when confronted with CCTV footage, his story changed. Now, he said he had picked her up that night to help her, calling himself a Good Samaritan, claiming he was simply trying to get her home safely. He admitted to driving her to Oak Road playing fields, where he left her behind and drove off. Afterward, he went home, took a bath, and spent the rest of the night on his phone. It wasn't quite a confession, but it was enough to place him at the scene. And with a witness reporting screams at that very location, police knew there was far more to this story. Detectives now feared the worst. Libby had likely met harm. 7 weeks after Libby disappeared, a fisherman in the Humber estuary made a chilling discovery. A badly decomposed body, floating in the water. Around the neck was a delicate necklace with a letter L on it. The search for Libby was over, but now, the pursuit for justice had just begun. The post-mortem confirmed Libby had been assaulted before her death, but due to severe decomposition, the exact cause of death remained unclear. Had she been killed before entering the water, or had she drowned? Authorities suspected she had been pushed into the river Hull, eventually drifting into the Humber estuary, but there was no definitive evidence to confirm whether she had been alive at that moment or not. For Libby's mother, Lisa, the discovery was even more heartbreaking. Her daughter had always feared water, never being a strong swimmer. The thought of her being submerged, uncertain of her fate, only added to the devastation. As news spread that the case had shifted into a murder inquiry, Lisa shared a heartbreaking message. The world was mourning Libby Squire, but authorities were far from finished. The fight for justice was only beginning. By August 2019, 7 long months after Libby vanished, Pawel Relowicz was due in court, not for her murder, but for his long history of sexual offenses. Initially, he denied everything, but on the day of his trial, he changed his plea, admitting guilt to 9 counts in total. 4 counts of voyeurism, 2 counts of outraging public decency, and 3 counts of burglary. Between 2017 and 2019, he had stalked victims, broken into homes, and terrorized women throughout Hull. He was sentenced to 8.5 years, but after a successful appeal, it was reduced to under 6 years. Though police were thankful he was now behind bars, the investigation into Libby's murder was far from over. Because despite his convictions, Pawel Relowicz was still walking free from the most unforgivable crime of all. The fight for Libby's justice wasn't over yet. As the investigation into Libby Squire's murder continued, detectives worked tirelessly to strengthen their case against Pawel Relowicz. They combed through thousands of hours of CCTV footage, tracing his every movement on the night Libby got into his car. Then, they made another critical discovery. Pawel Relowicz had returned to the crime scene at 2:30 a.m., just 2 hours after taking Libby there. He stayed for a few minutes, then drove back into town, where he was later seen exposing himself to women on the streets. This was the final piece investigators needed. There was no reason for him to return unless he was covering his tracks, hiding evidence of what had happened that night. Then came the forensic results. After months of testing, police received confirmation that Relowicz's DNA was found on and inside Libby's body. Confronted with this damning evidence, he changed his story again. Now, he claimed that Libby had initiated everything, that she had thrown herself at him, and the two had engaged in consensual activity before he left her alone in the fields. But detectives weren't buying it. They had built their case, and now, they were ready to formally pursue charges in connection with Libby's death. As the investigation pressed forward, Libby's family, friends, and community came together to honor her life. In October 2019, nearly 300 people gathered for her funeral, reflecting on the bright, loving young woman whose life had been tragically stolen. Then, just 2 weeks later, the announcement everyone had been waiting for came. After consulting with prosecutors, police officially charged Pawel Relowicz in connection with Libby Squire's tragic case. When the charges were read to him via a translator, he started laughing, completely unbothered, seemingly unaffected by what he had done. Even his own mother denied his involvement, insisting that he respected women, but added that if he had done something terrible, he deserved to be punished to the fullest extent. Relowicz pleaded not guilty, maintaining his story of a casual, consensual encounter. And after multiple delays due to the pandemic, his trial finally began in January 2021. The prosecution painted Pawel Relowicz as a dangerous predator whose escalating crimes led to a devastating final act. From the moment he spotted Libby alone, cold, upset, vulnerable, he had made up his mind. She was his target, and if it wasn't her, it would have been someone else because that night, he was determined to act. The defense challenged the timeline, arguing that the crime had to occur within a brief 10-minute window. But the prosecution pushed back, pointing to Libby's vulnerability, Relowicz's physical strength, and the indisputable DNA and CCTV evidence. Adding to that, Relowicz returned to the scene 2 hours later, giving him plenty of time to cover his tracks. This wasn't random, it was deliberate. His crimes had intensified over time, evolving from voyeurism and burglary to something far worse. The reason he had become so brazen? He kept getting away with it, again and again. After a grueling trial, the jury finally began their deliberations. Pawel Relowicz found guilty of the assault and murder of Libby Squire by a majority of 11-1. For his heinous crimes, Relowicz was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 27 years. Upon sentencing, the judge delivered a chilling statement. Libby never stood a chance that night, and if Relowicz were ever released, he would be monitored for the rest of his life. The case was described as unimaginably harrowing, and should he be granted parole, he would be in his early 50s before he could walk free. Libby's family expressed their grief, thanking the public, police, and legal teams for their unwavering support.
As a family, today's verdict changes nothing for us. There is no closure, we don't get to have Libby back, and our lives don't revert back to normal.
After Pawel Relowicz's conviction, his wife immediately separated from him, moving back to Poland, unable to reconcile the person she knew with the crimes he had committed. But Libby's mother, Lisa, refused to let her daughter's case fade into the past. She became a powerful advocate, pushing for stronger laws on non-contact offenses, arguing that early intervention could prevent future tragedies. The Squire family launched a campaign urging people to report lower-level crimes, emphasizing how seemingly minor offenses can escalate into far worse acts. Lisa even met with then-Prime Minister Boris Johnson, advocating for automatic whole-life sentences for murderers. In 27 years, Libby doesn't come back. I don't get my daughter back. My children don't get their sister back. We have a whole life sentence. Why shouldn't he? In 2022, Lisa sought one final piece of closure, a meeting with Relowicz in prison to uncover the truth about Libby's final moments. Surprisingly, he agreed, only to withdraw his decision in 2023, blaming his media portrayal and the Squire family. It was a final act of control, keeping Lisa waiting for answers she would never receive. Despite everything, Libby's family continues to fight for change, keeping her memory alive. Libby Squire's story didn't end with a verdict. It lives on through her mother, Lisa, who refuses to let her daughter's name fade into memory. In the wake of unimaginable heartbreak, Lisa has channeled her grief into action, fighting for stricter laws, greater protections, and justice for victims who never got the chance to speak for themselves. Every morning, she wakes up to the same reality. Libby is gone, but the love she holds for her daughter remains unshaken, eternal. She speaks out, she campaigns, she pushes for change, all while carrying the aching weight of loss. In moments of silence, in the lull between waking and sleep, she still reaches for the life that was once whole, only to remember the cruel truth. Yet, through all the sorrow, through all the tears, Lisa refuses to let Libby be forgotten. Her daughter's kindness, intelligence, and bright spirit live on in every fight, every cause, every heart that hears her story. The world may have lost Libby Squire, but because of Lisa, her legacy will never disappear. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support the channel and help me continue sharing important stories, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It makes a huge difference, and I truly appreciate every single one of you. Until my next video, stay safe and look after your loved ones.